Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast, here to discuss everything that has happened in the world of mixed martial arts over the last 7 days, and plenty to talk about with UFC San Antonio in the books, headlined by Marlon Cheated Vera taking on Corey the Sandman Sandhagen. Was meant to be a 13-fight card, ended up getting down to 10 fights. We'll be discussing the fights that got cancelled, all of the results, Sandhagen's win, some of the judging results and judging scorecards that were submitted, Cowboy Cerrone's entry into the Hall of Fame, and some very poor refereeing on the part of one Frank Cozallo at Fury FC, which certainly had a lot of the fans watching on TV and watching live, and his coaches in horror. I am, of course, Matt, your host. Here, as always, to help me discuss everything is the other half of this podcast hosting duo, host and producer Josh.
Howdy.
I am a little tired and hungover, as is Josh. I am currently in the snowy mountains of Val d'Isere. I do not know how good my Wi-Fi is. Hopefully there is not too much of a lag and Josh can hear me okay.
I can hear you great. There is a reasonable lag, but I feel like we're going to work through it. It's been a while since we had a lag to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, our Wi-Fi's usually been better, but I'm put it this way, it's difficult to find space in the chalet. I could be closer to the router, but that would also put me in closer proximity of screaming loud children. So I've found the best compromise that I can, and we will, as always, continue. The show must go on, as the old expression goes. And Josh, from our first year of doing this podcast, you got to practice with the lag. So I'm sure we can figure this out.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Make it work. Just a reminder, as always, guys, please like the video if you're enjoying the content. Subscribe if you are not already subscribed. And comments are always appreciated. We want to hear feedback. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what you guys think. Plenty of controversial talking points today, so it is as good an episode as any to chuck your own 2 cents in. With all of that out of the way, let's get to UFC San Antonio. Let's talk about this main event. 2 guys, one a former interim title challenger, the other on the precipice of a title shot himself. Loads of stakes, 2 high-level strikers, 2 high-level mixed martial artists. In the end, Corey the Sandman Sandhagen, struggled to say that for a second, got the job done, looked extremely technical, top level, overloaded Cheeto, and in most people's eyes, got a pretty clear win. Not in the eyes of one of the judges, who shockingly gave the fight 48-47 to Cheeto Vera. I don't know quite how he reached that scorecard, but that is going to be our first talking point. Josh, I'd like to pass this over to you. Obviously, we will get to the judging, but first and foremost, what were your thoughts on the fight itself?
I thought round 1, Corey did great. Obviously, Cheeto's a notorious slow starter. One of these guys likes to try and download everything, get the reads so that he can land the power shots later on. I think he did really well with kind of keeping everything quite subtle, keeping things at kicking range, working the leg. When Cheeto wasn't getting off the center line, he was working the right hand nicely. Anything else, he was kind of using the check hook quite nice. Didn't tip his hand too much, you know. He didn't have to go crazy in that first round, just won a clear round. Second round, adjusted a little bit, more of the same. I liked the way he threw him a takedown at the end of the first as well. We always knew that, you know, as he's been building on his wrestling game, taking Cheeto down was going to be an inevitability in this fight, or at least chasing the takedowns would be. And, you know, Jason Perillo was going apeshit in there at Cheeto, rightly so. It's kind of hard to say that, you know, Sandhagen out game planned him or anything. I think Cheeto just in particular just had a bit of an off night. Those last 3 rounds are closer. He did do some damage. I think the 48-47 scorecard is still ridiculous, but I do appreciate those last 3 rounds were a bit closer. I mean, if there was a round you were going to give to Cheeto in this fight, which round would it have been?
I feel like I have a slightly different perspective on this. So one of the factors of me being in Val d'Isere is I had to watch a lot of the main event fights the next day. I did annoyingly have one tweet kind of ruin the situation in the main event. So I kind of already knew that Sandhagen won. and I already knew that the split decision was controversial and contentious. So for me watching the fight, I mean, first and foremost, I was really impressed with Sandhagen. I thought, the changing of the stances, I thought implementing and mixing the takedowns in as well, something we'd seen him do against Song Yadong. It felt like you could see the progression that he'd shown with that. It was a little bit more effective with Song. It seemed to be more of just something that he wanted to ask the question. He definitely had more success, and you can see that in the control time that he achieved against Cheeto. But obviously, I'm watching this fight kind of looking for what a judge could have seen to go 48-47. I will admit, and maybe I'm a little different from this. If you go 48-47 Sandhagen, I don't think that's crazy. I feel like round 3 was a good round for Cheeto. I think round 5 was a good round for Cheeto. The issue I have is that rounds 1, 2, and 4 for me are extremely obvious for Sandhagen. And if I'm really honest, if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably give Sandhagen round 3 as well. Now, the only thing I wonder, and this is something where you might be able to think of a fight, Josh, where you've seen this before. Do you think there's a factor where, because the fight was so one-sided for those first 2 rounds, sort of human nature dictates with the judges that maybe they saw the differential or the improvement from Cheeto, and that's kind of what made that judge think that he won the rounds? Whereas if all 5 rounds were closer, but went in Sandhagen's direction, maybe you don't see that improvement in performance from Cheeto that makes you think he's won the rounds.
I don't know. I mean, subconsciously, things like the crowd sway a judge's opinion. It's impossible to say, right? But I would like to think that even when we do see an atrocious level of judging, they are at least good enough to remember to judge each round as an individual round. I think even there'll be other fights we talk about on this card, where do we draw the line between volume and clean and damaging shots? At what point does the damage take over as being more immediate than the accumulative, and you award that fight at the round. For me, Cheeto got closer. Rounds 3 to 5, they're a little closer. 4, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I'd say all 5 rounds are kind of obviously Corey's. I'm just trying to play devil's avocado here, and I do understand with the rule set being what it is. You can lose an entire round and have a strong 10 seconds at the end, and it's the right kind of knockdown and almost finishing them. You're probably going to steal that round just based on the damage. So I don't know. It's I know that you also have another scorecard you think is more egregious. This is just, we're seeing too much of this in MMA. I think step 1, open scoring. I just don't think it's going to make fights more boring. I think it's going to make things more interesting, and it's just a fairer way for the fighters to kind of game plan as they go through a fight as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. And listen, no, I like to see the fan reaction. I like to see people being so vocal about what they feel is poor judging, because we all know this is something that has to be improved. What I would say, though, is that people are reacting very vitriolically to this in a fight that ultimately got awarded to the right winner. However egregious that one scorecard was, the only difference it made is that this went from a unanimous decision into a split decision. The fight that I've got an issue with, and the judging I've got an issue with, which is lower down on the card and we'll get to, I feel that the wrong person won. So although I do appreciate that it's a talking point, and it's obviously worrying when, you're an audience member, you're a fan, you watch a lot of mixed martial arts, you see what you think should be 5 pretty clear rounds to score, and you see a judge just get it so horribly wrong, and your mind goes to all of the other fights that this person might judge and also get incorrect. But I don't know. I'm just one of these people that I'd much rather that we freak out about this kind of judging when the wrong person gets the result compared to when the right person ultimately wins.
Well, it gives more kind of incentive for change, particularly when it's high profile fights. But for me, it's like every time we accept shit judging, every time we accept people's careers being derailed, you're just fucking with things you shouldn't be fucking with. And I was reading a post on Reddit the other day, someone talking about how different Dominic Reyes' career would have been if he'd been given the nod in that John Jones fight. He probably would have lost the rematch, but would have had a new contract, would have had pay-per-view points for that fight, would have had the opportunity to maybe beat Jones again. Would have gone down as
Would have had
taken
the
out.
payday.
Yep, it's obviously losing fights is what it is. There's no excuses. He went on an awful losing streak after that, but one decision really completely derailed that man's life. And just because it's lower down doesn't mean the stakes aren't always as immediately high. If you fuck up someone's career early on, you could be robbing us of John Joneses and GSPs of the future. It's something that just from
This
top
is
to
true.
bottom has to be done at a higher standard. But you're right, like when it is when it does actually fuck up someone's career, rather than just taking a clean decision to a split decision, it's definitely like I can see why even the fighters and the coaches would be like, what's the fucking point in appealing one judge's scorecard? He's just an idiot. Let's move on. There's no harm done. But still, for me, I'm very a bit of a pedant about these things. I don't like the current system, the current processes, and frankly, stupid shit like this, I think is kind of counterproductive for things like fighter safety, which is always kind of in the forefront of my mind in all sports. But bringing in
Can you
concussion.
explain?
What's that?
Can you can you explain that? Can you just go into a bit of detail when you say fighter safety and relating to judging?
Yeah, just about to. So, I think if you have open scoring, and you have a better standard of judging, then you're going to see more fighters kind of go for it in the third round, but you're also going to be able to see opportunities when coaches will just throw in the towel because there's no point going on. If you think your fighter might have squeaked 3 rounds in a 5-round fight, but they're getting beaten badly towards the end of the fight, if you know that they're actually 4 rounds down or 3 rounds down, and that it would take a miracle, and it's just you're kind of gambling with their safety and their future sort of health, throw them a towel. Likewise, I know that they have this fear of kind of creating boring decisions and things, but if you know you're up 2 rounds, you don't necessarily have to put you you don't have to try and go out and you shield in the 3rd round. You can be smarter about it. You can, take them down, take position over submission. You don't have to take the same level of risks. That's the onus is on the other fighter now. If you can get it to a comfort level in a safer area, that's better for fighter safety. Obviously, Dana White wants the most violent iteration of the sport that he can fucking get, but that guy won't be around for that long. Things have to change inevitably. So there's just lots of little things I'd like to see, but I do think that having a better level of judging and having open scoring makes it fairer for fighters, and it definitely does contribute towards fighter safety as well. Just in all these little ways that have traditionally been out of a fighter's control, you're putting it back in them and their team's hands. That's just the safe, responsible thing to do.
I've never liked this argument either, that it's going to create more boring fights. If you kick it, there are so many fights we see where a guy knows, there's no question about it, he's won the first 2 rounds, and that most of the time people are aware who's won the rounds, and it makes no difference if you've been dominated and wrestled on the ground for 10 minutes or 9 of the 10 minutes in the first 2 rounds of a 3-round fight. You know that you've lost those first 2 rounds. You don't need an open scoring to tell you that you've got to go and knock this guy out. And equally, the other guy doesn't need to have an open scoring to know that he's won those first 2 rounds. What we're trying to prevent, and it's actually going to make more exciting fights, and we see this all the time, is how many times do we see a guy that thinks he's 2 rounds up, fights safe, takes no risks, tries to just make sure he doesn't do anything stupid, and in the end, loses the decision, as we are going to discuss in one of the fights lower down, where you can't tell me that if I know I'm jumping ahead of the line, but you can't tell me that Andrea Lee doesn't fight that 3rd round differently if she realizes that 2 of the 3 judges have her losing the fight at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's open scoring. I'm a big fan of. I don't understand why we don't do it. It's just one of these. It's like the 10-point must system. It's just, well, boxing doesn't have open rounds, so the UFC doesn't have open rounds. But it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. We have so many, things that we don't even like about the 10-point must system in mixed martial arts. So and again, it's different. I can appreciate in boxing that when it's something like 12 rounds, maybe you don't want to have the score. Maybe you just say there's too many rounds to the scores up. But in a 3-round fight, just let the guys know where they're standing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Cheeto Vera would Cheeto Vera, would it have affected the main event? Probably not. I don't think Cheeto needed anybody to tell him that he was losing that fight for the majority of the time. I think he was quite aware of it. Obviously he probably would have been a bit thrown off
after round 3. I think the open scoring might have, kind of picked up his confidence a bit.
Yeah, or just confused him, being like, "What the hell is that one judge seeing?" And to Cheeto's credit, at no point is he trying to say that he thinks he won this fight. He knows he lost that fight.
Yeah, and he knows he wants Yarn next. I gotta say, I don't hate it.
That's a good fight. I don't hate it. Let's talk about Cheeto for a second. We know he's a slow starter, but this felt like it wasn't just him starting slowly. This felt like he just did not get going for the first 10 minutes.
He stayed at
Do you
the
think
wrong range.
that's everything? Do you think that's everything that Sandhagen was throwing at him? Or do you think maybe his last 4 finishes or last 4 fights have kind of not made him lackadaisical on this, but given him this impression that he can afford to throw a round away or he can afford to throw minutes away in a fight? And maybe as a result, he didn't quite have the urgency. And, listen, when you've knocked out 3 of your last 4 opponents and beat Rob Font by basically just landing that perfect strike that damages and knocks him down pretty much at the end of every single round, maybe you do get a bit overconfident. Maybe you do think it doesn't matter if you lose 3 minutes, 4 minutes of the first round, 4 minutes of the second round. And at that top level, against a guy like Sandhagen, who I don't think's ever been knocked out.
No. I don't believe so.
Risky strategy. I mean, obviously I got this one wrong. I picked Cheeto, you picked Sandhagen. In many ways, it was foolish to pick somebody knowing that he was going to probably need a knockout and needing to knock somebody out that has literally never been finished and shown himself to have a good chin. But
the other thing is on paper,
when you hear some of the things that...
Sorry, I was just going to quickly jump in with a short one.
No, go ahead.
Back again. When they updated the scoring criteria to where it currently stands, that favors guys like Cheeto. They have made the scoring criteria more friendly to his style, but on paper, I think it was a really tough one to pick. I think it's just the dichotomy of human nature. Cheeto's a very professional fighter. He has world championship mentality. He's also a very emotional guy. I think he just got caught up a little bit. He just had an off night.
Well, it certainly seems so. When you hear the things that Jason Perillo was saying, certainly after round 2, I think after round 1, he was asking Cheeto, is everything okay? Yeah. And it seemed like after round 2, I can't tell if it was after round 2 or round 3. I didn't hear what Cheeto said, but I heard in the corner Jason Perillo say, you look like the same Cheeto to me. So my assumption would be that Cheeto said something to him, like, I don't feel like myself. I don't feel like something's happened, like I'm in the groove. Obviously, after the fight, that he didn't have a long post-fight post-fight interview, but he did kind of say, I just felt like I never got going. I felt flat. And, one thing about, I think we got to give credit to Corey as well, because I just think he threw so many different angles, so the footwork, so many different problems. I just think he overloaded Cheeto a little bit.
A little bit. Cheeto did make it easy for him, though. He completely stood at the wrong range for the first 2 rounds. Once he straightened that out in the third, and, particularly, I think it was in the third round, he landed that 1-2 that was just, oh, Jesus, for a second I started to believe the fight was actually going to turn around. But yeah, like, once he let Sam,
I believe, kind of 10 seconds,
pick him out, it was just, yeah, was it 10 seconds to go in the second then?
No. So what I was going to say is Cheeto lands that 1-2 in the third round. I think it's 15 seconds later, Sandhagen responds with an absolute monster uppercut. So it just felt, even as Cheeto was getting going, Sandhagen was able to kind of throw something back that sort of negated the good work Cheeto did.
Yeah. He was countering very well with, anytime Cheeto had momentum, Sandhagen would. And I thought it was a departure from the game plan and a bit foolish and a risk. But every time Cheeto hit him, he would make it a point to walk Cheeto down and get a good shot in more or less immediately, which, in my eye, kind of, gives Cheeto those simpler reads to try and catch you on again. And, that's the moments where he's going to be the most dangerous. But, hey, Sandhagen didn't get punished for it. You're right. He had a really good gameplay. I love the way the first 2 rounds played out. I like the way he was pacing himself. He wasn't showing his full arsenal of strikes until sort of later in the fight. Once he had success with the uppercut, he kept going to it. To us, that right hand was just, I don't know. Cheeto was just kind of struggling with it all night. Sandhagen does hide it well, to be fair. Good fight though. Just not super fucking close. After the first 2 rounds, it was just he was just waiting for it to kind of change a bit, and he improved, but it just never quite got there for me. I enjoyed it. I wasn't on the edge of my seat.
No, I think that's a pretty accurate depiction. Let's talk about what's next for both guys. Obviously, you've kind of touched on this for Cheeto already. A lot of people saying Peter Yan. I both like and don't like that fight for either guy. What's your thoughts on it?
It's one of those fights where Yan's going to get a huge bounce back win if he doesn't get caught. But both guys need to throw themselves back into the mix, not quickly, but in terms of if either of them wants to touch the title. Excuse me, sorry. And I know for Yan is obviously going to be regaining the title, but if either of them wants to get to the top of the mountain this year or next, they need to be going through that murderer's row now. There's no easy fights. There's no like tune-up fights. It's they're gonna have to fight each other. The winner's probably gonna fight. It depends how it shakes out. If they get the fresh matchup, maybe the winner of the Dvalishvili and Sandhagen fight, if they make that, maybe an O'Malley, maybe who's O'Malley booked right now to fight?
No one.
Is he sitting spare?
I think he's sitting spare, but I think he wants to sit spare. I think he wants to sit spare though, because I think he's got his eye on potentially fighting the winner of Cejudo versus Triple C. Cejudo versus Aljamain Sterling. Sorry,
makes sense. And obviously, if Aljo doesn't lose, if Aljo doesn't win, Merab might well be the next one up on deck. It really depends. Say like Aljo gets knocked out badly, has to take an extended layoff. There's not a real reason why Merab shouldn't get his title shot at that point, but fuck knows. It's going to be an interesting summer for 135. It'd be really cool to see what they start setting up for the end of the year as well.
Yeah. My reasons for not liking Chito Vera versus Yan is I think they're such talented fighters, and if you put those two together to fight, with Yan coming off 3 losses, Cheeto coming off 1, potentially facing 2 if he loses to Yan, I don't like the idea of almost eliminating one of those guys as a potential title contender. And I feel like that fight would be what happens. It's also going to be the most boring fight in the world for about 6 minutes.
Probably.
Unless they both learn. Sandhagen on the other side, and I think he deserves a huge amount of respect for this, calling out that man's name who you just said, Merab Dashvili. That is a call out I think he might want to sleep on.
Again, he's in that position. He's lost to too many guys that are there or thereabouts. He needs a statement win. That Merab fight means that he leapfrogs all of those sort of rematches. Obviously, I mean, like Dillashaw's gone, but you know what I mean? It's if he could finish a guy like Merab, all of a sudden, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Can Corey Sandhagen really cut it in the top 5? He deserves a title shot. So,
how do you think he matches up though against Merab?
Awfully. Merab's a cardio machine. It's going to be a 5-round fight. There's no getting away from that. It's not enough to just win the first 2 rounds. You're going to have to go out there and finish him, or really put a beating on him for 3 rounds. And
Sandhagen, he needs space. He needs space to operate. That's why I don't like this fight from at all.
Well,
he will not be in the range that he needs to.
I'm sure he'd rather just go like, I'll take the winner of Cejudo Aljo. But, he's smart enough to understand that's not going to probably work out that way.
True.
It's really the smartest fight you can take if you want to back yourself as a world champ, if you want to believe that you can beat anyone, this is a one fight road to a title shot. It's just what you have to do when you're at this level. I don't think he's looking at it complacently going, yeah, Merab, that's fucking easy money. He's looking at it going, if I want to be a world champion, that's a fight I have to win. And if I win that fight, I'm going to get, another crack at the title, and this time not an interim. So it's
Fair.
I don't like it for him stylistically. Obviously, this is what he has to do.
And also, eventually, you will have to face Merab. Even if you get the title shot and then you win it, the first person you're probably going to have to defend against is going to be Merab Dashvili. There's no argument there.
Yeah.
So in many ways, I suppose, once you get to a certain level, you can't, there's no avoiding anybody. But fair play to him. That's not the fight I would have called out. Sandhagen moves on. Another person who moves on gets back in the win column. Holly Holm. We were not sure about this fight. Her against the Yana, formerly Kunitskaya, and now Santos. I think we both went Holly Holm on this one. We weren't overly confident, and Holly Holm made us look stupid for even dousing her for a percentage. I mean, she was sensational. Dominated Yana from start to finish in striking, in grappling, almost finished her on a couple of occasions, almost her first submission. Obviously, fighting a Yana that's given birth 10 months earlier, that has to be taken into account.
Yeah.
But this is a Holly that hasn't fought in a year, that's 41 years old, does not look it, has a brand new 6-fight contract, and is not showing any signs that she's quitting now.
Yeah, Holly looked fucking great. I wonder how much he's got left in the tank past this fight. But yeah, I was thinking a lot about this whole 10-month... it's very impressive coming back from pregnancy to actually competing, let alone training within that kind of time frame. She had time to be in great shape and to sharpen her tools and to kind of knock some of the rust off. But it still is only fucking 10 months. She's not in the shape of her life. She's not at her complete peak and fighting best here. Kind of looked that way. It was a good fight whilst it was on the feet and a bit more competitive. I thought Holly did such a great job getting those underhooks, getting those inside trips, always landing on top and just completely smothering her. She was very... what's the word? I'm so hungover today, Matt. I apologise. But she just went through things very clinically. It's just like process. She didn't take any stupid risks. She didn't make it easy for Yana to get up or to get out of bad situations. Just methodical. That's the word I was looking for. Methodical.
Also, she's just, for 41 years old, man, she is one of the best female athletes in mixed martial arts still. Her speed, her size, her strength. She is still to this day such a hard fight, which is why she's still at the top of this division. I don't get the impression she's slowing down. I don't believe that she can get past a certain precipice at this point, though. I think we saw that against Ketlin Vieira. If she was ever to fight Amanda Nunes again, even I think if she was to rematch somebody like Irene Aldana, I don't know if she would look as good as she did 3 years ago when she won that fight the first time. But this isn't a deep division. A lot of the names that we've seen for a while are still the same names that are up there at the top. And we're not really seeing anybody come through that's looking like they're going to break through and be the next big contender. So do I think that Holly Holm could keep doing this for 6 more fights? 6 is a lot. Depends how often she fights. But, hell, if you can still turn in performances like that at 41, there's no reason to think that you couldn't do that at 42, 43. And I don't really see anybody that I think is particularly dangerous ranked below her. So, fair play to Holly, still doing the damn thing. Spoke out against an issue that I'm fully in agreement with, saying that we need to protect children against exploitation and sexualization. Amazingly enough, she is eating crap for that, and I do not even know how that is possible.
I didn't know specifically what she was referring to, but in general, of course, I'm against this. Why wouldn't we be? Shit, like... I hear stuff sometimes and I'm like, how much of this is like tied into some weird conspiracy like Pizzagate or QAnon or something. But I honestly didn't know specifically what the fuck she was talking about. Who's giving a shit? Is there something more to this that I've missed?
No, it's just that it's just online trolls, man. It's just online trolls. But the issue is, so obviously, look at what we had in the last few months. There was the whole Balenciaga situation. There's been a lot of push of this idea of like drag your kids to Pride, which not as in take your kids to Pride Month, as in take your kids to a nightclub where there's drag queens and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be supportive of those things, but a lot of these things involve quite a sexualized viewpoint on certain viewpoints on genders that I don't think should be appropriate for a 7-year-old. And I think it's the Balenciaga adverts, it's these elements that she's kind of looking at and going like, hey guys, what's going on? Why can't we just let kids be kids for a little while? Let's deal with this when they're a little bit older.
Yeah, fuck it. I have no real comment on it. It's weird. People will give you shit for anything though. You go online, you find people. The majority of them are dickheads, and because they're online, they're worse.
Very true. But hey, Holly Holm, she is the preacher's daughter by name. She is preaching the good fight by nature, and she's still winning the damn thing at 41. So fair play to her. Right. It is time to talk about my gripe. We need to discuss this. This was the next fight, I believe. No, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I'm jumping ahead. Nate the Train. I got this fight wrong. I'm going to stop. This is the moment I'm going to stop doubting Nate the Train. I can no longer look at this man as just a wild brawler that is looking to get knocked out or knock out. He has got that in him. But this fight, man, I thought he was working the jab. I thought he soaked up pressure when he needed to in the first round, started applying it at the end of the first round and in the second, and really just beat down and broke Austin Lingo, man.
Yeah, he might have lost that
great
first
submission
round, but it was sorry, go on, sorry. The lag.
No. Please jump in.
I was gonna say, like, the first round, I was watching it thinking Austin Lingo has done good work here, and up until the end, I wasn't sure. I was like, he's definitely winning this round. Nate did pull it back a bit towards the end, but it was like, you've won the battle, but I think Nate set it up so you're going to lose the war. I thought Austin was going to be smart enough to, or kind of sounds like I'm shitting on him now. I kind of anticipated that Lingard would stick around until the end of the fight, and it was going to be a case that Landwehr was going to take rounds 2 and 3, but, Nate smelled something dodgy going on with the judges before anyone else knew what was coming. He took him out of the equation. Nate looked fucking seasoned. Look, real pro moves. Like a real nasty vet in there. I still am going to underestimate him from time to time. I just, there's reasons we don't traditionally think of him as being that great. But this was a good fight, and it was a great performance from Nate.
I'm not saying he's a fighter that's going to win a world title. He's got a very identifiable level. But I thought he made good reads in this fight. I thought Austin Lingo, and they nailed this in the commentary, was a little too predictable with the hooks. And really, the moment that Nate was the one that started walking forwards, that was the moment he started winning the fight. Rocked him. I thought the choke was very opportunistic, showed a good rounded game set. Well-rounded skill set, I should say. And he's such a character, man. I mean, you can only understand about every third word he says, particularly after he's been hit a few times. But the guy gets the crowd going, man. You can't say he's not a character.
Yeah, I mean, any white guy talking about Elvis and Jesus, that does well in America. They are what they are. But he's a fun fucking guy.
Yeah, and he's good looking too, according to himself. Says that at the end of every single fight.
I mean, I do think that to myself, about myself constantly. You know what? I don't think Nate's a bad looking guy. I like his fucking, his cheeky charm. Got my kind of ego.
Hey, man, you got to have it's all about confidence, man. It's all about confidence. And you need it in fighting. He's got it in spades. Couple of wins. Is that 2 wins on the bounce from now?
Ooh.
Yeah, David Onama.
Yes, yeah.
David Onama and Austin Lingo. And Ludovic Klein as
Man's back
well.
in the game.
Yeah, 3 wins on the bounce now. 3 wins in the bounce. Done really well after that knockout loss to Julian Juicy J Arosa. And as we know, there is no disrespect in losing to Juicy J.
Oh, absolutely not. And it was a great knockout, and it was a good fight.
Okay, let's talk about this now.
Yeah.
Andrea Lee, Macy Barber. I've got one question for you, Josh. Who did you think won this fight when the scorecards were being read out? Before the scorecards were being read out?
I had it very close. I definitely went Barber in the first, Lee in the second, and I got to be honest, I went Lee in the third as well. So I wouldn't say I was like shocked. You know, I thought, because I had picked Barber, that there was a good chance she'd fucked me on this, because I was pretty sure you'd pick Lee. I couldn't remember. I didn't check the picks on the night.
I picked Barber. Barber.
All right, perfect. So my fears were completely unnecessary, but I was worried she'd done me dirty and fuck me over on this one. I do agree with you. The 30-27 is utter bullshit. But I guess even though, Lee had top control in every round, Barber did outstrike her, did land some good shots. I just thought Lee did great work as well. I thought Tony Lee made a great point of that in the second round. He really had her number. She really had her number. So, yeah, 30-27 just felt like a really, really shitty way to reward Andrea Lee's efforts. That was just rounds 2 and 3. Give them to Lee.
Why is Dan Mogliata become a judge? Why have we taken a shitty referee and just made him a shitty judge? These are not the people. Like, why can't we have good referees become judges? Why can't we have good former fighters become judges? Why is somebody that basically stopped getting gigs as a referee because he was shit at it becoming a judge that then delivers a shit scorecard? Now, let's just clarify. Macy Barber did outland her in all 3 rounds. And we know that damage trumps all things. So even though, the idea is that control time doesn't match up to damage. But when you have less than 5 additional strikes in each round than your opponent, in one of the rounds, I think she had like 1 or 2 additional strikes. And in that same round, your opponent takes you down, controls you on the mat for over 2 minutes. Like, at what point do we have to say that takedown and control time has to account for the very slight strike differential that's not in your favor? This isn't just we're not playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots here. It's not a case of I hit you 4 times, you hit me 3 times, therefore I win because I got 1 extra strike. And it's not like Macy Barber rocked Andrea Lee. It's not like she hit her with anything that was hugely significant. She didn't rock her. She didn't cut her. She didn't knock her down. In fact, the only person who was bloody at the end of this fight was Macy Barber.
Yeah, Lee had all the optics. It just it threw me off a bit. It was surprising to get that 30-27.
And it's annoying.
It's a close enough fight.
Sorry, go ahead.
I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing a rematch at some point. Andrea Lee wins a few, or Barber loses one. They're both like right there at that kind of same point. And it did look quite a close fight. I mean, if both of them could get higher up the rankings, I wouldn't mind seeing that headliner main event. I'd like to see them go 5 rounds on that. That'd be interesting for me.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, listen, it was a close fight, but as we've said many times on this podcast, close fights can still have obvious winners. And it's particularly annoying with Barber, man, because as you know, I'm not the biggest Barber fan, but one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of hers is she has had a couple of these decisions that probably shouldn't have gone her way flip in her favor. And once you have more than one of those, it's my human nature makes me resentful of that. Like, Miranda Maverick beat Macy Barber. Barber never should have been given that result on the scorecards against Miranda Maverick, but she did. And she moved forward in her career and Maverick moved back. And now Andrea Lee, who's 34 years old, is at really more of a crossroads in her career than Macy Barber is, needed that win far more than Macy Barber. And again, Barber's got this, slightly undeserved, eyes squinted, just gone in your favor card result that's going to move her on to a position that she doesn't deserve to be in. And it's frustrating because I'll be honest, like I did think Macy Barber's striking looked pretty good, But I honestly think Macy Barber looks like a worse fighter now than she did 3 years ago. The Macy Barber of 3 years ago is not getting taken down by Andrea Lee. Macy Barber, with what her basis is meant to be, which is wrestling, should never in a million years be taken down in all 3 rounds by Andrea Lee, who is a kickboxer. This is a fighter that is not improving to me, and yet she's going to move forward in the rankings. The only good news is that flyweight's actually really deep now, and she's going to be fighting a top 10 opponent. And looking at the UFC's top 10, I would not pick Barber to win a single one of those fights. There isn't a single top 10 ranked flyweight I would back her to beat.
No, but on the flip side, Andrea Lee's a dog. She's a gamer. And you're right, she's a kickboxer. She's also an MMA athlete, and that's exactly what she fucking did to Macy.
True.
I really, really wouldn't mind seeing that one go again with 5 rounds. It's not like we don't see weaker scheduling most years at some point. So, fuck it. I'm right there with you on Barber. I'm not as resentful of her, but also just not a huge fan. By the way, I don't know why the fuck I kept saying Tony Kelly. I need to sleep off this hangover.
Tony Kelly.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Don't worry, I'm hungover as well. I can't get any weed here, dude. Sleep has been fucking impossible, man. I'm fine not smoking weed during the day. It really doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would, which kind of proves that I'm not massively addicted to weed. It's just habitual. But it's once I want to get to sleep, man, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. It's just been 3 days of me staring at the ceiling going, go to sleep. Damn. Why can't you sleep? Made skiing very fun this morning at 9 o'clock, as I'm sure you can imagine. But that is not our listeners' concern. What is our listeners' concern is that Albert Duraev made me look like an idiot for pitting Chidi and Jaquani.
Samesies.
Chidi just couldn't get the key. He couldn't keep the fight where he needed it to be, man.
Well, after he caught that body kick first and took him down, it was like, that is Chidi's best weapon, and now he's scared to throw it. And his corner is even telling him going into the second round, to switch to the hands. Don't throw that kick anymore. It's like you have to. That is the thing you do best. That is your game-changing, fight-ending power. Duraev, just took him to school.
Yeah, the problem is as well is once you're 2 rounds down against a wrestler like that, you just get that instinct of I need to knock him out with the hardest shot I can throw, and that it makes it easier for you to get taken down and controlled. Rough run for Chidi. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, I believe now. Yeah, Rodriguez and Albert Duraev. After a really impressive first couple of fights in the UFC, knocking out Todorovic, knocking out Barrio. I like Chidi, man. I hope he can pull it back in his next fight, because I don't think the UFC keep him if he goes on a 3-fight skid.
No, I think they also give him a more favorable matchup. You're wasting what you have by forcing him to go against grapplers like Duraev. Give him a banger. We'll get an absolute war. I mean, ideally, you'd love to see him, up against guys much, much sort of higher up. It's just after that, you can't really justify it. So give him a bounce back fight. Comes through well. Give him another striker. Gets through that, then you can start making other guys' names off of him. It becomes good business for the UFC.
I'll tell you who was delighted with Albert Duraev winning, though.
Go
on. Joaquin Buckley. His win against Albert Duraev just aged a lot more nicely than it did before Saturday.
Yeah, go on, Buckers. Root for the bad guys. I'm kidding. Not all Russians are bad guys.
Hey, Joaquin Buckley's not a bad guy, man. He's a legend. Fucking love that guy. Can't wait to see him at welterweight.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't casting aspersions on Joaquin. Just Duraev. Unfairly.
On Duraev, sorry. Unfairly, yeah. You can't pick where you come from. You only pick where you're going. Talking about that, let's talk about Daniel Pineda. 28 MMA fights, 28 MMA wins, 28 MMA finishes. If that doesn't scream, I belong in the UFC and I deserve to fight here for as long as I physically can, I don't know what does, because I thought he looked absolutely awesome, man. I thought this was a terrific performance. I thought, I mean, he hurt Tucker, he rocked Tucker, he dropped him, he choked him. What more do you want from this guy? Getting it done at, how old is he now, Pineda?
Fucking old.
37 years of age. 37 and still looking that sharp against some of these young killers.
And Top Gun got some good shots in that Pineda just fucking ate like they were Tic Tacs. Again, I've said it so many times, I get bored of it myself. You know, a tested chin becomes a tired chin. You know, that's not how you keep your chin. What the fuck do I know when it comes to Daniel Pineda? And what the fuck did Tucker Lutz know? He did not look chinny at all. When he dropped Lutz in the first, it was just like, you know, you had the cleaner shot there, and his wild counter just fucking put you on your ass. This is going to be a rough night. I almost felt bad for him.
No, well, Pineda gets an impressive win, and I'll be honest, the card needed a win in a performance like that because we were all a little heartbroken when midway through the broadcast we found out that yet again Alex Perez is unable to fight due to an injury. Obviously, previous fights being cancelled a little bit earlier than halfway through the fucking card, but this one was cancelled halfway through the card. It was my favorite fight apart from the main event. I feel this card needed that fight. I know Alex Perez isn't happy about it, but Manel Karp has not taken this well at all. He has been slating Alex Perez online. Do you think that's merited, or do you think he's being a bit harsh?
I thought it was merited up until I found out that Perez had a seizure. So, and I don't know how much Karp knew about what had happened with Perez, and to be honest, how much of it are you going to believe at that point? He has every right to be furious. I mean, it's misdirected Perez, obviously, but fuck it, man. Like, you know, you've just done your camp, you've done your weight cut. I for Mano, get cut, wear cut, fly. Yeah, I feel bad for him knowing now, after having seen what he posted online, later finding out that Perez had a seizure. I think, you know, what the fuck is Alex supposed to fight after that? Absolutely not. It's really, really unfortunate that it happens when it happens. But it's a lot better than if it were to happen in the fight.
True.
And, you know, obviously they're not going to rebook it because, you know, Perez needs to go make things right with the gypsy that cast him. I don't really know what's going on with that poor guy's career.
So I believe I said earlier, and I don't know if we were recording when I said this, but I said no fight for Perez in 3 years. That's incorrect because he did fight Pantoja last year. But I'm just going to read through, and this is the only side where I would say that Manel Karp has a slight argument to be annoyed slightly on the basis of, you know, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. So this is Alex Perez's number of fight cancellations in the last few years. February 12th, fight against Kai Kara France cancelled. Saturday, fight against Manel Karp cancelled. 2022, fight against Matthew Schell cancelled due to Perez injury. Askar Askarov versus Alex Perez in July 2022, cancelled due to Alex Perez injury. Then, obviously, he fights in July 31st, gets defeated by Pantoja. Fight cancelled against Askar Askarov in 2021. Fight cancelled against Matthew Schnell in 2021. Fight cancelled against Matthew Schnell 2021. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is 7 fight cancellations in the last 3 years, with one fight that actually happened in between, and it was a dominant first-round submission loss. I will say, and just to confirm, it does look like the cancellation against Askar Askarov in 2022, that seems to be Askarov who pulled out because Perez did fight 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
but we're still talking about 6
on Schnell. I think wasn't one like
I don't
Perez
believe
had a
so. I mean,
problem, like,
3
the
of them.
actual weight cut. I can't remember what the second one.
It could be. Listen, I think two of the 3 Schnell cancellations were Perez. One of them might have been Schnell. But either way, we're talking about 5 cancellations in a 2-year period with one bad loss in between that seems to be on you. And at a certain point, like, obviously bad luck happens. Obviously, when you get ill, when you get injured, you get injured. But at a certain point, I think you have to look at things and go, I'm doing something wrong. Like, whether it's my training, whether it's my recovery, whether it's the weight class I'm in, whatever it is, something isn't going right, because otherwise I wouldn't be dealing with all of this stuff. And I don't know what the correct answer for that is. I don't know what the detailed medical situations are. I don't know what his training regime looks like. But if it's this hard for you to get fights actually end up with you walking into the octagon, something's got to be changed, man. I mean, he's 31 years old in a division that is considered a young man's game. He has not got time to have another 5 fight cancellations in the next 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, it's now or never. If it's a case that he can't hold up to the training because there's something wrong with his body, I mean, shit. Like, you're young enough to do something else or to transition to coaching, but you know, you got to figure it out because it's I like I say, he's got to go find the gypsy that cast him. I'm being ridiculous. It's a joke, but the truth is that at this point, I didn't have a lot of sympathy for him when I first read that Manel Cart post. Afterwards, you find out a bit more about the circumstances that change. I still don't know everything about it. But it's just, yeah, fuck, man. Like, you look like a really flaky guy. People aren't going to want to sign on to fight you because they're going to be worried. They're going to sink money into a training camp, and you're not going to fucking make the walk.
The UFC are going to get worried as well, man. They're going to just start going, listen, man, if you're injured, don't take fights.
They're going
Because
to get
every time
worried,
you
but
do
they're
this,
also going to use it to put him over a barrel, I think. They love having you under the thumb. They love forcing you to do what they want to do, so there's like the flip side for them is also like, right, well, this motherfucker's kind of got to do whatever we tell him to do at this point. If we tell him to fight this
true,
guy,
but
he's fighting him. End of.
here's the thing I'd say, though, and I think this might be more of a Hunter Campbell thing than a Dana White thing. But when I listened to Darren Till after he got requested his release from the UFC talking on Bisping's podcast, one of the things he said was that Hunter Campbell was phoning him up quite a lot, saying, listen, Darren, we like you, but it's getting a little bit hard with all the injuries to keep kind of backing you to a certain extent. Now, obviously, Alex Perez and Darren Till are not in the same situation because for a lot of those Darren Till fights where he pulled out or was injured, they were main events. So the stress is different because you've built the cards around that person headlining. It's a bigger paycheck. It's a bigger amount of media and marketing that goes into it. But considering what we know, which is that Hunter Campbell is taking on more and more of the Dana White-esque responsibilities, particularly when it comes to fight booking and fight organizing and fight making and matchmaking, I should say, rather. It doesn't sound like this is a guy that has the largest amount of patience on this kind of stuff. And Alex Perez is not a big name. He's not in a flashy division. He has not got a big following. He does not have anywhere near the same kind of leverage that Darren Till has. And that worries me for Alex Perez. I really hope he's a good fighter. I really hope he can get it sorted. There was a reason we were so excited about this fight because we wanted to see two really good fighters go at it. But it wasn't to be.
Nah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll learn more as as the weeks pass. Hopefully, everything's okay with Alex, and we get to see him healthy and fighting again. But if it's the case that he's not, then I just really hope he lands on his feet.
Yeah. So to confirm, I did not do well on the main card. At this point, I'm 2 for 6 at this point, Josh. I'm 2 for 6. And I actually think that one of the ones I got right which was Macy Barber. I'm actually annoyed that I got right. So I actually feel I should be 1 for 6. That's my situation.
Yeah, I went 4 for 2 on the main card.
Did you back Pineda?
No, I had Sandhagen, Home, Landwehr, and Barber. And then I took Top Gun and Bang Bang, but wasn't to be.
Yeah, so 2 for 6 on the main card is not good for me. I got this next fight is wrong because I backed Steven Peterson. Lucas Alexander got it done. I thought he looked really impressive. Turned into Steven Peterson's last fight.
Yeah. Like, what more can you say about it? I've loved Peterson. He just accepts that now's the time to coach. It's not that, I think he takes fighting very seriously. I think he looks at the sport in a similar way to myself. Like, if you're not there to really be in the hunt as a champion, if you're not young enough to continue learning and growing so you can eventually pursue that kind of aspiration, then you're just taking a lot of risk with your health, putting your body through a lot of stress, very, very fucking medium money. Smart guy like Peterson, I think he'll do very well as a coach. And I thought it was a very, I don't know, like, only he can tell you, right? But I like it when fighters retire at the right time, and it kind of felt like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And listen, it hasn't always been easy for him in the UFC. I mean, looking at lost to Lucas Alexander, 2022 loses to GCJ. 2021, he gets the win over Chase Hooper. 2 years previous was the last time he fought before that, loses to Pena, loses to Caceres. But he has certainly created his moment, man. One of my all-time favorite knockouts was his spinning back fist knockout of Martin Bravo. That's the one where Martin Bravo sports through the spinning back fist. He threw it straight afterwards, ducked underneath Bravo's spinning back fist and landed his own. So the guy's got a highlight that he can take hold in his heart forever. Got good wins. And who knows, man, Chase Hooper might become a huge prospect. And we might look back and go, oh, you know, who did Chase Hooper lose to? Oh, Stephen Peterson. How did that guy ever beat him?
Yeah, well, that guy that got 3 UFC bonuses, the guy was always a live wire. Yeah, man.
No, and
Go for Peterson, going out with his head held high, doing it on his terms. More importantly, Lucas Alexander looked fucking fantastic.
look really good, man. Look really good. He's got a lot of promise. Let's move down the card. Trevin Giles gets it done against Preston Parsons. This is another one I got wrong. I'll be honest. I accept the Trevin Giles one, but I thought you could make an argument for Preston Parsons. I thought this was a close fight, but I think Trevin Giles just kind of got it done at the end.
Did well, and I don't like how Giles' chin holds up at 170. I think 185 might be a better division for him.
Long term, yeah, but he survives. Doesn't bother him in this one. He manages to get to the final bell and get the decision. CJ Vergara. Man, I was almost even worse on this card. I only got 4 fights correct out of the 10 that we had. CJ Vergara, it did not look like he was winning this fight for the first 6 minutes.
No, I mean shit. And if he had lost after running away like he did, and just kind of set it clear and kind of tell you how I feel about it, that was the right fucking move. The only reason he won the fight is because he was so adamant and intelligent in running away until he absolutely couldn't without having the fight waved off, and then finding a way to survive and fight back when he needed to. But it was so fucking close. I know Daniel Lacerda, if he doesn't win in the first round, he doesn't win. It's a question on using that explosiveness in a more measured way so that you don't gas. But you can't blame him for going all out in the first round after the success he had and how close he was to finishing this fight. CJ Vergara, one hell of a comeback win. One of the local fighters on the cards. This was just kind of fucking exciting. But if he had lost that first round running away like that, I've seen fighters cut for less.
Yeah, as in if that's what he did and then he ended up losing the fight overall, it wouldn't have looked good for him. Although, it's funny, I did feel if I don't know if you've had a chance to rewatch anything, but if you look back at that first round, towards the end of the first round, when he was in that situation where he couldn't really run away anymore and he's having to throw back, he was actually landing some really good counter shots on Lacerda, who obviously being so aggressive was kind of chin up, not eating them particularly well. I did kind of think, even going into the second round, I was like, you know what? Lacerda could throw this away quite easily. Like, he is getting caught. CJ's, it didn't seem implausible to me that he could turn it around. The fact that he did is still unbelievably impressive, but I could just see the fragments of how he could catch him and kind of work his way back in towards the end of round one.
Yeah, Lacerda's a really dangerous guy, but if he was a lot smarter about the way he fights and would kind of set things up with the jab a little bit more, not throw those naked spinning hook kicks, because the one that he caught him with, it wasn't so much that he set it up, it's just that at that point Vergara's already a little tired and a little wobbled, and he can't make the read in the same way to get his legs out of the way so that his head's not there for the kick. The first two he threw, just fucking asinine. Like, what are you doing? You're not going to get away with that at this level. Fight slower, set it up. Don't tip your hand immediately. Do what Corey did in the main event. Build up to it. Go a little slower. Be more of a cerebral fighter. You've got the talent there. You've got the danger. Obviously, this is a lot of losses for Daniel now. Where's he at with the UFC? I think it's like 0-3, 0-4. Fair enough. It's Jeff Molina, Little Figgy, and Altamirano. And now obviously CJ Vergara. I think he gets one more shot, but he needs to make it fucking count. This guy can't fight with the pressure. He needs to start fighting with the game plan.
Yeah. And do you think if he doesn't blow his load, he could have just continued that, just done what he did for the first 4 minutes of round one in rounds 2 and round 3?
Yeah, I think if he'd been a bit more patient at the end of round 1 and a little less stupid at the start of round 1, round 2 would have been very different. Win or lose that round, I think he probably doesn't get taken down and dominated in the same way. I think he works a little harder to kind of regain guard and, keep himself a bit safer from those elbows. But, fuck it, change one thing, change everything. It's hard to kind of go back and say who would have won the fight overall. There is just that feeling that once it gets outside the first round, your man's fucked. So, I don't know. Like, make it count on the next one. Unfortunately, you're going to be fighting under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure because if you get one more, it's definitely going to be the last one if you lose. But yeah, unfortunately, you need to rise to that challenge and fight a smarter fight.
Josh, are you saying that some men can only last 5 minutes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some fucking athletes just, for whatever reason, once the fight starts, the game plan goes out the window. Anyone, I don't care like how good your cardio is, anyone can gas if they fight the first 5 minutes the wrong way. This guy doesn't look like he has garbage cardio. He looks like he just doesn't understand what you shouldn't be doing. He almost treats it like it's a capoeira exhibition at times. Just like big spinning kicks, big exaggerated movements, very athletic, very dynamic. No one's fucking impressed when it doesn't land. Nobody. And you just hurt yourself.
That's a good say. You don't win any points for the strikes that you don't connect with.
Yep. And you might as well start rephrasing it, Daniel, as you don't win any points for the shots you don't fucking set up. So, but, if that guy was feinting more and working behind the jab, he would be a really, really tough guy to hit, a really tough guy to read and deal with. And if he was a bit more patient looking for knockout shots, I think he'd still be finishing people in the second and the third. I don't think everything has to be done in the first. But, yeah, we'll see.
We shall see indeed. I finished first fight on the card, last fight we'll talk about. Victor Altamirano gets a scrappy decision win against Salvador. I don't really have too much to say about this fight, to be honest. Altamirano gets the win.
Volume over damage. And it was fair. It wasn't like Altamirano wasn't doing damage in shots. Both guys were very, very overwhelmed, you could tell by the occasion. Altamirano's head movement was fucking atrocious, but at the same time, very effective. It was like, if one of you could just calm down, this fight would turn into an absolute one-sided arse whipping. But you're both panicking at the same level. Quite a close fight. Not very technical, but still very entertaining.
Yeah, fights that we lost. Obviously, we talked about Alex Perez versus coming off the card on the night. We also lost Haley Cowan versus Tamires Vidal a little bit earlier in the week. We lost Manuel Torres versus Trey Ogden on the weigh-in day, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. I think Vidal Cowan was either weigh-in day or the night before as well. So it was like 3 in the weekend, which was rough.
Yeah.
And obviously there were like other
and we'd already lost
Sean Brady against
Liang Na versus Brogan Walker. Caceres was the one who was meant to fight Landwehr. So this, in the end, 10 fight cards, not the best card that we've ever seen, but there were certainly some good fights, some good moments, some controversy, and another entry this year into the Hall of Fame. In the modern wing, the man who will fight anybody, anywhere, anytime, Cowboy Donald Cerrone, got the honors, got the big moment. He was live watching. His family came and surprised him. Some people are saying that he's not a worthy pick for the Hall of Fame based on his accolades. And I do think that's a little harsh. Obviously, not a world champion. Obviously, at no point would you have said he's the best fighter in his division. But that doesn't change the fact that at a moment in his career, he had the record for the most wins, the most finishes, and the most bonuses in the UFC. And I feel personally that the UFC Hall of Fame, if you really want it to be reflective of the best that the UFC has to offer, you have to have people like that be eligible for it. In the same way as the NFL Hall of Fame isn't just reserved for people that have won Super Bowl rings, I feel like
But
there
it is
has to be other
weighted that way.
metrics that can get you in that. It is weighted,
The NFL, I mean.
but there have to be exceptions. Yeah, there have to be exceptions. I mean, Zach Thomas got into the Hall of Fame this year for the Dolphins, and he never won a Super Bowl, never even came close to winning a Super Bowl.
No, but
Cowboy
he
is
was,
that
yeah.
exception.
Well, you say like he was never the best in the division. He was right up there for a big old window. And when he got that RDA title shot, it was almost towards the end of that window. If it just gone a little different before that, it could have been very different. I don't think winning a belt is a prerequisite for the MMA Hall of Fame, UFC Hall of Fame. Congrats to Cowboy. I think he deserves to be in there just on merit of the fights he's had and the wins he's had.
Have we had three people inducted into the Hall of Fame this year?
I don't keep count on it, to be
Aldo.
honest.
I don't know if Aldo was last year. That's the only thing I'm not sure on, but I'm pretty sure it would surprise me because he retired he retired towards the end of last year. Obviously, he fought in August. No, it would have been this year. So I think this year they've inducted Jens Pulver, Aldo, and Kisaroni. Three people so far.
Smaller guys getting some love.
Gotta love it. I mean, I'm vowed to Jens, but I mean, it's been nice. I mean, obviously, Aldo's a legend. Jens Pulver's a legend. Cowboy is joining a very prestigious class. Good for him. That pretty much takes up all of our UFC coverage. But Josh, you highlighted me to some pretty shocking refereeing. We've been talking about some pretty shocking judging, but this was at a regional event, Fury FC, and featuring a ref who also judges, called Frank Cozallo. Josh, can you fill us in a little bit on what happened here?
Yeah, Frank allows one fighter to go unconscious in a triangle choke. The commentators are screaming at him to stop the fight. Both corners are screaming at him to stop the fight. A lot of the fans are screaming at him to stop the fight. Again, it was in Texas. I think just the way they do judging at like sort of allocations. What's it? It's not like Texas Sporting Athletic Commission. It's Texas something else. I can't remember the fucking letters for their overseeing like governing body. But you know, you have a lot of refs judging in Texas. We had Colazzo, Mergliotta, and Herzog on the San Antonio card. But this guy, yeah, it was absolutely disgraceful. The fight is unconscious for approximately 20 seconds, and it's a bit of a weird one where sometimes you're unconscious, you're moving around a little bit still. The winning fighter transitions to the armbar, and obviously you armbar someone that's unconscious. It's going to take a while for them to tap. His arm gets bent backwards in an atrocious manner. Severe dislocation, possible fractures. Just a very bad look. And his corner was saying, because in Texas you can't throw a towel in. You have an official standing with your corner that you notify you want to end the fight. They told this guy, we want to end the fight. End the fight. He's unconscious. Go in there and stop the fight. And the guy didn't. I guess presumably because he could see that the fighter was unconscious and was assuming Frank was going to do his job at some point. But like this was like Steve Mazzagatti levels of torturous late finishes. Just absolutely fucking abysmal. One of the worst things I've seen in sport in the last 5 years. Just Frank shit the bed hard. I don't think Frank should be allowed to judge ever again at any level. Ref even.
I think I mean, just to clarify how shocking this is, if you hold a blood choke for I think it's longer than about 9 seconds, you can kill someone.
Yeah.
That's the consequences we're talking about. It does. You don't see those consequences because fights get stopped before that happens. But that is the end result of these chokes being held longer than they should. What's really frustrating about this is almost every single ref I've ever seen, if you aren't sure that somebody's conscious, you can talk to them. You can ask them to give you a signal that they are awake and they are still fighting. We see it all the time in the UFC. Refs ask guys to communicate. Guys give refs thumbs up to confirm that they're okay. There are ways beyond, being able to physically tell if somebody's unconscious to be able to confirm if they're actually able to, if they are conscious or able to respond or are in a position where they are happy to continue. The fact that he didn't do that for so long to the point that the opponent actually changed the submission out of fear of killing this guy is absolutely disgraceful. Not least because that isn't something that the opposing fighter should have to consider. He should be able to focus on one task and one task only, which is winning that fight. Like, let's say that the opponent, and I don't know the names of the guy, unfortunately. Let's say that at the moment that he loosened up the triangle choke and switched it to an armbar, what if that guy regained consciousness, takes advantage of the transition, gets on top, and starts pounding the other guy and wins the fight by TKO?
Yeah.
There's so many reasons why this is. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I was really just agreeing with you. You're right. Like Frank really just kind of sat there, just ignoring everybody. I don't know what the fuck happened. I don't know if Frank was having a stroke or something. It was just absolutely astounding. Is harrowing, to be honest, is a more accurate word for it. You can't fuck around with people's lives like that. You can't fuck around with their safety. Even if you don't kill them, just like choking oxygen to the brain can cause like permanent fucking damage. If you live through it, like
yep,
it's just fucking unacceptable. When a corner is trying to stop the fight, that should be the end of the fucking fight. Never mind like how bad Frank fucking shit the bed. Texas shit the bed too, and they also came out and said, we allow promotions to kind of select which refs are going to be available for it. Fury FC went, don't fucking put this on us. Absolutely not. We had no opportunity to select the officials, and we would gladly never select this guy again. Texas have some questions to answer, particularly with this whole corner stoppage not being taken seriously, not being acted upon. Watch this space. I'm sure we'll have a bit more information on Frank come next week. I fucking pray anyway. There's no way they can sweep this one under the rug. It's getting ridiculous now.
Well, here's the other factor as well, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful to regional MMA or Fury FC, but it's not like these guys are fighting for a world fucking title. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking regional MMA. Like, the standard of referee intervention should be so much quicker at that level.
Yeah, I would say because this was the main event.
They're not getting paid enough for this shit.
Yeah, these guys are potentially on the brink of something bigger, but okay, fair enough. Like it's still
it's still
like the point you're making is very valid. It's like
you want to
we're going to come back to this when we know more about it. Like, this isn't one we're going to let go. This one's really got under my skin.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating. I mean, you literally told me about this about 2 minutes before we started recording, and I've seen a 53-second clip. It is hard to watch, and it's even hard to watch despite the fact that Frank Cozallo's fat ass blocks most of the worst parts of the armbar while he's unconscious. I can only imagine if I'd seen the other angle, it would have been even more shocking to see. So, not good, not the best. Few too many outside of the cage or outside of the fights themselves talking points this week on our podcast, I think, from mixed martial arts over the weekend, which we don't like to see. C'est la vie. I think that is pretty much all of our main talking points.
Yeah, man,
Josh, obviously there is no UFC card this weekend, so no pick show dropping. But we might. Well, I mean, me and Josh got to have I'll have a conversation with you afterwards, but yeah. I want to run a couple of ideas past you. There potentially might be some content coming out later in the week. We will. I'll have a discussion with Josh off air.
Yeah, we'll at least have a pick show for Adesanya Pereira too. That will be dropping the same time next week. That in kind of in place of the main podcast. We'll probably drop that on the Monday.
Yeah, probably do a slightly sort of longer, kind of more podcast length episode on that one since it's such a big card. But yeah, things to look forward to. Again, guys, like, subscribe, comment, tell us your thoughts and opinions. Does Cowboy deserve to be in the UFC Hall of Fame? Tell us what you think. Who did you score the main event to? On that note, thank you for listening. We will catch you guys next week. Potentially some extra content coming out, but I need to discuss a couple of ideas with Josh. And until then, bye Dave, bye Laurie, bye Trifo. Have a good week.
Bye Laurie, bye Dave.